It's the middle of the night, 40,000 years ago. There's no mattress, no blanket, no door with a lock. Just you, a thin layer of animal hide, the dying orange of a fire, and a darkness so complete it has teeth. You close your eyes. Somewhere out there, something is awake and hungry. This is what sleep used to be, and closing your eyes could get you killed. Now think about tonight. You'll walk into a room, flip a switch, pull a blanket up to your chin, and hand over your consciousness for 8 hours without a single flicker of worry. You do this every night of your life. And you have almost certainly never once wondered what it used to cost. Because here's the thing nobody tells you about sleep. It may be the single most dangerous thing your ancestors did every day of their lives. And the way they solved it, the way they figured out how to switch off their own brains in a world specifically trying to eat them, is one of the strangest, most overlooked survival stories in all of human history. It involves fire. A secret night shift nobody signed up for, and a lost human habit we quietly deleted about 2 centuries ago and mostly forgot ever existed. So how did anyone survive the night? Let's go back into the dark. First, we have to talk about how genuinely bizarre sleep is, because almost nobody stops to think about it. Sleep is not resting. Resting is lying down with your eyes open, still alert, ready to bolt. Sleep is something far more extreme. Sleep is your brain making the executive decision to shut down your awareness, blindfold you, mute your ears, and during the dreaming stage, paralyze your entire body so you physically cannot move. That last part is not a metaphor. During REM sleep, the phase where you dream most vividly, your brain fires off a signal that switches your muscles almost completely offline. So for stretches of every single night, you are a soft, unconscious, motionless lump of warm meat lying in the open. From a survival standpoint, this is completely deranged. Every night, an animal that sleeps voluntarily throws away every advantage it has. No awareness, no reaction time, no defense. If sleep were pitched today as a startup the product is, you go blind, deaf, and paralyzed for a third of your life, it would not get funding. And yet, everything does it. Fish do it. Insects do it. A jellyfish, which does not even own a brain, still drops into a sleep-like state at night. There is no getting out of it. Which tells you something enormous. If evolution, that cold, patient, ruthless accountant, kept sleep around after hundreds of millions of years of animals getting eaten while unconscious, then sleep is not a bug it failed to fix. It's a need so deep that the risk of death was the smaller problem. The brain would rather gamble with the predators than go without it. So the question was never, should we sleep? The question, for every ancestor you've ever had, was simpler and much scarier. How do you do the most dangerous thing in the world every night and wake up? Coming down from the trees. To understand the human sleep problem, look at our closest cousins. Chimpanzees, gorillas, orangutans, every single night, they build a bed. A brand new one. Each evening, a great ape climbs up into the branches, bends and weaves leaves and limbs into a springy little platform, and sleeps up there, high off the ground, out of reach of leopards and hyenas and whatever else hunts in the dark. Then they abandon it and build a fresh one the next night. Every ape you have ever seen is, quietly, a nightly architect. Our ancestors used to do exactly this. And then, somewhere along the line, we did something reckless. We climbed down. At some point, early humans started sleeping on the ground. The open, exposed, everything can reach you ground. This is a genuinely dangerous decision, and for a long time it was a real puzzle. Why would a slow, clawless, defenseless ape give up the safety of the trees to sleep in the one place every predator could walk right up to it? The best answer we have is also humanity's oldest comfort object. Fire changed sleep more than almost anything else in our story, and it did it in ways that go way beyond warmth. A fire is a wall you can't see through, and predators don't want to cross. Most animals are deeply afraid of it, which means a burning fire ringed by sleeping humans is a moving fortress made of light. It pushes the darkness back. It keeps the big cats at the edge of the glow instead of at your throat. Suddenly the ground isn't a death sentence, it's a defended campsite. But fire did something sneakier too. Sleeping on solid ground, safe and flat, may have let humans sleep harder than any ape before us. Up in a tree, you can't fully let go fall too deep and you fall out of the branch. On the ground, behind fire, you could finally crash into the deep stages of sleep and stay there. And here's the strange twist that researchers keep pointing at. For our body size. Humans actually sleep less than other primates, around 7 hours, when the math says an ape our size should need closer to 10. But we spend a much bigger slice of that time in REM, the rich, dreaming, brain maintenance stage. In other words, we didn't just sleep on the ground. We evolved a shorter, deeper, more efficient sleep, the kind you can only afford when something else is guarding the dark for you. Fire bought us better dreams. That's not a poetic flourish, that's a trade. Which raises the obvious question. If everyone's lying down asleep around the fire, who's watching it? Here's one of my favorite pieces of science in this entire story, and it comes from people who still live much closer to this world than we do. The Hadza are a group in northern Tanzania who hunt and forage, much as humans have for most of our existence. A team of researchers spent about 3 weeks tracking the sleep of a Hadza community, dozens of people, night after night, wearing motion sensors, building a minute-by-minute map of who was awake and who was out. They were looking for a well-rested group, all sleeping soundly through the night. That is not what they found. What they found was that across those 3 weeks, there was almost never a single moment when every adult was asleep at the same time. Add it all up, and out of hundreds of hours of darkness, the total time when the whole group was simultaneously unconscious came to about 18 minutes. The rest of the night, at least one person was always awake. Not on guard duty, not assigned a shift, just awake. And the pattern behind it is beautiful. People of different ages naturally drift off and wake up at different times. Older adults tended to fall asleep early and wake in the small hours. Younger adults stayed up late and slept in. Nobody planned this. Nobody drew up a rota. The simple fact that a family or a band spans a range of ages meant the group was accidentally, automatically, continuously guarded, a rolling night watch generated for free by the ordinary differences between a grandparent and a teenager. Researchers have a slightly cheeky name for the idea: the poorly sleeping grandparent hypothesis. For years, waking up at 4 a.m. in old age has been treated as a malfunction, a broken clock, a symptom, a problem to fix. But flip it around and it looks less like a bug and more like a feature. The light-sleeping elder, awake and alert in the dead hours while everyone else is down. Maybe one of the reasons our species survived the night at all. Grandma's insomnia wasn't a flaw. It might have been the security system. Sit with that one for a second, because it quietly rewrites what a good night's sleep was even for. Now we get to the part that genuinely stopped me in my tracks, because there's a lost human habit hiding in plain sight, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. The historian named Roger Eckerk spent years buried in old documents, diaries, court records, medical books, letters, poems, prayers from centuries of pre-industrial Europe, and he kept tripping over the same two strange phrases over and over in hundreds of unrelated sources: first sleep and second sleep. At first, it reads like nothing, but he slowly realized these people weren't being poetic. They were describing, casually, as if everyone obviously knew it, a completely different way of sleeping. For much of history, people did not sleep in one solid 8-hour block. They slept in 2. You'd go to bed not long after dark. You'd sleep for a few hours. That was your first sleep. Then, around midnight or 1 in the morning, you'd naturally wake up. And you'd just stay awake for an hour or two. Wide awake. In the dark. On purpose. This waking window was a normal, expected, ordinary part of the night, and people used it. They prayed. They talked quietly with whoever was next to them. They tended the fire, checked on animals, had sex, thought about their dreams, or slipped over to a neighbor's house. There were even instructional books written on what to do during it. Then, when they were ready, they lay back down for the second sleep until dawn. 2 sleeps, with a peaceful little intermission of consciousness wedged in the middle. And this wasn't rare, or regional, or a quirk of one culture. Hetcherk found the pattern everywhere the records ran deep. It looks like it may have been the default human night for a very long time. So where did it go? Why have you, personally, never done this? The answer is a wall you flip on without thinking. Artificial light. As lamps got cheap and bright, and then the electric bulb arrived, the evening stopped ending at sunset. People stayed up later and later. The night got shorter and got compressed. The gentle midnight intermission got squeezed out, folded away, and eventually forgotten so completely that most people alive today have never even heard it existed. We didn't decide to sleep in one block. We were quietly reprogrammed into it, in the span of a couple of hundred years, by the glow of a switch. So, stripping it all together, what did a night actually look like for most of human history? Not like yours. There was no dedicated room whose only job was sleeping. There was no clock deciding when the night began. The sun did that. People slept close bodies packed together for warmth and safety, families and often animals sharing the same space. Because a huddle is a heat source, and a wall of early warning sensors rolled into one. They slept on hides, on woven grass, on packed earth, softened with whatever was around. The fire stayed lit, or someone was near enough to feed it. Sleep bent around the temperature, and the season more than around any hour on a dial. You slept longer in the long cold nights of winter, and less in the short bright nights of summer. And it flexed. A short night could be topped up with a daytime nap without guilt or diagnosis, because nobody had decided that real sleep was one rigid, uninterrupted brick delivered between 11 and 7. Sleep was a soft, social, fire-lit, negotiable thing that stretched and shrank to fit the world. It was not the strict, solitary, scheduled performance we've turned it into. And here's a piece we almost never think about, because to us it's settled. What did ancient humans believe sleep actually was? Put yourself back in their heads for a second. You have no science of the brain, no idea what neurons are. All you know is that every night, without fail, a mysterious force switches you off, and then, while your body lies there useless, you go somewhere. You see people. Sometimes people who are dead. You fly, you fall, you talk to animals, you live whole vivid lives, and then a force switches you back on and drops you into your body at dawn with the memory still glowing. If that happened to you and nobody had ever explained it, what would you conclude? You would conclude that sleep is a doorway. That dreams are a real place your spirit travels to while your body waits. And that is almost exactly what cultures across the entire world independently decided. Dreams were messages, warnings, visits from ancestors, instructions from gods, a crack between the ordinary world and something bigger that opened every single night for free. Think about how strange that makes the human night. For most of our history, going to sleep wasn't switching off, it was setting out. Now, I have to be straight with you here, because this is where it would be easy to oversell it, and the truth is more interesting than the clean version anyway. It's tempting to say every human everywhere always slept in two neat blocks, and that this is our one true natural pattern we've tragically lost. But the evidence doesn't fully support that, and pretending it does would be doing exactly the thing this channel refuses to do. Because when researchers went and actually measured sleep in present-day hunter-gatherer and forager groups near the equator communities in Tanzania, in the Kalahari, in Bolivia, living without electricity, and roughly the way humans did, for ages they did not find the tidy two-sleep pattern. Those groups tend to sleep a single stretch of somewhere around 6.5 hours a night. They fall asleep a few hours after sunset, not right at dusk. They usually wake before dawn. And here's a detail that should make every anxious modern insomniac pause. They don't really have a concept of insomnia at all. Some of their languages don't even carry a word for it. So which is the real ancestral sleep? The two-block night from old European records? Or the single-block night measured near the equator? The honest answer is that there may not be one single natural human sleep. And that's the whole point. It looks like the two-sleep pattern may belong more to the long, dark, cold nights of high latitudes and deep winters, where the night is simply too long to sleep through in one go, than to every human everywhere. Sleep was never one fixed program. It was, and is, a shape that molds itself to the light, the latitude, the temperature, and the threat. Anyone who tells you there's a single correct ancient way humans slept is smoothing over a much richer, messier, more human truth. But somewhere in that messy truth is a genuinely uncomfortable thing worth staring at. For your entire life, you have been taught to want one specific night. 8 solid hours, straight through, no interruptions. Anything less is a failure, a disorder, a thing to medicate. And so millions of people lie in the dark at 3 a.m., wide awake, hearts sinking, convinced their body is broken when a version of exactly that wakefulness was, for a very long stretch of human history, just the intermission. A normal pause, the quiet hour between two sleeps. We took a natural rhythm, shone artificial light all over it until it collapsed, and then pathologized the leftovers. The very wakefulness that an ancestor might have used to pray, to think, to sit with someone they loved in the dark, we now experience as anxiety, as insomnia, as proof that something is wrong with us. We conquered the night. We lit it up, filled it, scheduled it, optimized it, and in doing so, we may have quietly lost one of the oldest and gentlest parts of being human, the ability to simply be awake in the dark and not be afraid of it. The predators are gone, but we found a way to make the night frightening again anyway. Here's what gets me though. Of all the things that separate you from that person lying by the fire 40,000 years ago, the language, the technology, the medicine, the endless glowing rectangle sleep is one of the last true threads that runs all the way back, unbroken. The clothes changed, the food changed, the gods changed. But every night, without exception, every human who has ever lived has done the same impossible thing. Surrendered, gone under. Handed their defenseless body over to the dark, and trusted, somehow, that they'd be handed back in the morning. They did it behind fire, guarded by a wakeful grandmother, curled against their family on a bed of hides. You do it behind a locked door, under a streetlight's orange glow bleeding through the curtains, your fire replaced by the little charging light on your phone. The setting is unrecognizable. The act is exactly the same. So tonight, when you flip that switch and pull the blanket up and feel yourself start to slip under, take 1 second before you go and notice what you're actually doing. You're not just going to sleep. You're performing the oldest, riskiest, most universal ritual our species has. The same one your ancestors performed by firelight while something hungry paced the dark just past the glow. They closed their eyes anyway. And so will you. We spent hundreds of thousands of years learning how to safely lose consciousness in a dangerous world, and then, in a couple of centuries, flipped on a light and forgot most of what we'd figured out. So here's my question for you, and I actually want to know. Do you ever wake up around 2 or 3 in the morning, wide awake for no reason, and lie there wondering what's wrong with you? Maybe nothing is. Maybe that's just your first sleep ending a 200-year-old habit trying, very quietly, to come back. Let me know down in the comments. And until next time, sleep well, however you do it.